The Italian Synodal Path has now reached a moment that has left many Catholics in complete shock. A new document has been released, and after reading it, many faithful are asking themselves whether the Church in Italy is still walking on the same foundation of faith it has always known. The text is called Leaven of Peace and Hope, and it was published on the official website of the Italian Episcopal Conference on October 16. At first glance, it appears to be just a summary, a simple report, collecting the reflections of local dioceses after years of discussion. But once you begin to read carefully, it becomes clear that this document is not like others. It carries ideas, expressions, and suggestions that many fear could completely change the Catholic identity in Italy, and maybe, in time, across the entire world. The Italian Synodal Path has been active for several years now. Its purpose was to listen to the voices of the faithful, to collect experiences and reflections from parishes across the country. In theory, it was meant to be a journey of communion and listening, a time for the Church to renew itself through dialogue and prayer. But something unexpected has happened along the way. What was supposed to be a spiritual journey of unity has now become a battlefield of ideas. The document, Leaven of Peace and Hope, has revealed how deep the division has become inside the Church itself. Many who read it were left speechless, saying that it no longer sounds Catholic, but rather like a political or social text. On the surface, the tone of the document seems peaceful and welcoming. It speaks about inclusion, dialogue, and hope, words that sound positive. But under those words lies a subtle change in meaning. Some of the expressions used come not from theology, but from modern social movements. That is what alarms many believers. They fear that the Church, in trying to speak the language of the world, is slowly losing its own language, the language of faith, the language of truth. It is this mixture of theology and sociology, of gospel and political speech, that has turned Leaven of Peace and Hope into a storm of controversy. The document will soon be put to a vote during the Third Synodal Assembly of the Churches in Italy, scheduled for October 25. That date is not just another meeting on the calendar, it marks a crucial turning point in defining the pastoral direction of the entire Church in Italy. Behind the calm and formal presentation, there is a revolution hidden in the text. It's not only about administrative reform, it's about identity, about what it truly means to be Catholic in a world that constantly changes. Many observers are saying that this document could open a new chapter in Church history, or close one forever. Among the most discussed passages is a section that calls on dioceses to promote recognition and support for individuals and families who, because of their personal situations, do not always find full acceptance in church communities. It also calls for overcoming discriminatory attitudes sometimes present within the Church and society. At first sight, this might sound like a message of charity, a call to compassion, something the Church has always stood for. But when readers looked closer, they found expressions that did not sound like traditional Christian teaching. The term recognition, for example, carries a strong cultural and political meaning in modern society. It goes beyond acceptance or accompaniment. It means public approval, even affirmation of lifestyles or choices that may not align with church teaching. This is the point where concern grows. Some priests and theologians fear that if the Church begins to use such language, it risks confusing mercy with approval, compassion with endorsement. The Church has always welcomed everyone, sinners and saints alike. But it has also always taught truth clearly. Now, many fear that the line between welcome and doctrine is being blurred. One parish priest, speaking privately, said, quote, "It's not about refusing people. It's about not changing the meaning of our words. If we stop speaking the truth in the name of inclusion, we stop being a light and become just a mirror that reflects the world." Others disagree. They argue that pastoral care must evolve, that the Church cannot simply repeat formulas from the past. They say the document represents an effort to read the wounds of the present time and offer hope to those who feel left behind. They believe that showing mercy and understanding is the only way to reach people who have drifted away from faith. For them, leaven of peace and hope isn't heresy, it's progress, a necessary step to make the church more human, more open, more compassionate. But this is exactly what makes the debate so tense. The difference between compassion and compromise is very small, and that small difference could reshape everything. This conflict over language has become the heart of the storm. The Church now faces a deep question. Is it still the teacher of truth? Or is it becoming just another voice among many in the world's noise? Some say the Church is walking the path of mercy. Others fear it is walking the path of confusion. The discussion is not about small details, it is about the very vision of the Church. Should it remain firm in doctrine, or should it change to better connect with modern people? That question now divides priests, theologians, and even bishops. Another part of the document that has caused strong reactions is the proposal for the Church to join civil initiatives, specifically days of reflection and prayer promoted by society against all forms of violence and discrimination. It mentions days against gender violence, pedophilia, bullying, femicide, and intolerance. On paper, these are noble causes. No Christian could oppose praying for victims of violence or injustice. But many Catholics worry that joining such events, which are often organized by secular or political movements, could create confusion. Supporting these events might make it appear that the Church agrees with every message those movements promote, even those that go against Christian teaching. Some priests have pointed out that while the Church must always pray for victims, it must also be careful not to align itself with ideologies that deny its moral vision. Many modern days of awareness are born in contexts where faith is pushed aside and moral truth is replaced by relativism. So while the intention may be good, participation might send the wrong signal. Others, however, defend the document. They say that praying for the victims of violence is never wrong, and that doing so publicly shows that the Church stands with those who suffer. They argue that compassion must not be seen as compromise. But again, the line between the two is thin, and that is exactly where this document stands, on a thin line between witness and confusion. This is why the leaven of peace and hope has become such a divisive issue. On one side are those who fear that in trying to please everyone, the Church may forget its own voice. On the other are those who believe that only by opening up can the Church truly be the heart of the world again.
Than words, what truly worries many believers is the direction of the journey itself. Is the Church still walking toward the cross, or is it walking toward the applause of the world? Another section that has caused serious debate is the part that talks about forming new educational programs for relationships, physicality, affectivity, and sexuality. It suggests that these programs should consider each person's personal orientation and identity. For some, this sounds like an attempt to update church education to better understand modern youth. But for others, it is a red flag, a sign that concepts from contemporary relativism are slowly entering church teaching. The Church has always taught that human identity and sexuality are gifts from God, created with purpose and meaning. But the new language in the document seems to echo the world's language, where orientation and identity are seen as personal choices, not divine design. Many theologians warn that by adapting to modern categories, the Church risks changing not just its methods, but its message. Once the Church starts using the world's terms without clear definitions, the world begins to define the Church instead. This is why so many call leaven of peace and hope a point of no return. It may not immediately change doctrine, but it changes how the Church speaks, and words shape belief. It is through language that truth is transmitted. If that language becomes unclear, the truth becomes blurred, and a blurred truth is easily forgotten. As this debate continues, Italy becomes a mirror for the entire Catholic world. What happens here will not stay here. Other countries are watching closely. Many believe that the Italian Synodal Path is testing ideas that could later influence the universal church. If these new terms and approaches are accepted in Italy, they may soon appear in other synodal documents around the world. That is why this is not only an Italian issue, it's a global one. As the days passed after the publication of Leaven of Peace and Hope, reactions began to spread like wildfire. Some newspapers described it as a historic document of renewal, while others warned that it could open the door to confusion and division. Social media became a battlefield of opinions. Faithful Catholics, priests, and even theologians began to post long reflections, each reading the same text but drawing opposite conclusions. It was as if the entire church had suddenly looked into a mirror and could no longer recognize its own reflection. In parishes across Italy, conversations after Mass were filled with questions. "Did you read the new synodal document?" one woman asked another. "It's supposed to bring peace, but all I feel is worry." Priests found themselves in difficult positions, unsure how to answer their parishioners. Some encouraged calm, saying that the synodal path was only a process, not a final change in doctrine. Others admitted they felt uneasy, sensing that the boundaries between gospel truth and cultural adaptation were slowly disappearing. Many priests expressed their concern privately, avoiding public statements to prevent conflict with their bishops. But behind closed doors, they spoke freely. "We're not against compassion," said a parish priest from northern Italy. "But when mercy becomes permission for everything, what remains of the truth?" Another priest added, "We must help people with love, yes, but love does not mean silence about sin. If we stop naming sin, then salvation loses its meaning." These quiet voices reveal how deep the unease has become inside the church. Meanwhile, supporters of the document defended it strongly. They said that the church has been too closed for too long, that it must open its arms wider and speak a new language that people can understand. For them, Leaven of Peace and Hope is not an attack on doctrine, but a way of making the gospel alive in today's world. They argue that modern society no longer listens to harsh words, that only through gentleness and inclusion can faith reach hearts. Jesus ate with sinners, one theologian reminded critics. He welcomed everyone without judging. We must do the same. But others replied that Jesus welcomes sinners, yes, but he also told them to sin no more. The balance between mercy and truth has always been delicate, and many fear the new document tips that
balance too far toward the world's approval. It is this tension between dialogue and doctrine, between mercy and morality, that now defines the entire Italian Synodal Path. As the October 25 assembly approaches, the bishops of Italy prepare to vote on the text. Many are aware of the storm that awaits them. Some dioceses have already sent letters expressing their discomfort. In others, groups of lay Catholics are organizing prayer vigils, asking for the Holy Spirit to guide the Church away from error. The atmosphere feels heavy, uncertain. Nobody knows what the outcome will be, but everyone senses that something irreversible is happening. In Rome, Vatican officials are watching closely. Though the document is from the Italian Episcopal Conference, its influence could go far beyond national borders. Some say this Italian synod is a kind of test, a preview of what might soon happen in other countries. If this new language is accepted in Italy, it will be harder to resist it elsewhere. "It's like a laboratory," one Vatican observer said quietly. "They're testing how far the Church can go before people react." The issue is not only theological, it's also spiritual. Many Catholics feel that the Church is walking into a fog, losing sight of the clear horizon that once guided it. The faithful who grew up with the certainty of doctrine now feel disoriented. They hear words like inclusion, recognition, and identity, words that sound kind, but which carry meanings shaped by modern ideology. For them, it's as if the eternal truth is being rewritten with the pen of political correctness. Still, there are voices asking for balance. Some bishops have tried to calm the storm, saying that the document should not be read as a new creed, but as a collection of reflections. They insist that nothing in it changes church teaching directly. "We are listening, not legislating," one bishop explained. But that explanation does not satisfy everyone. Critics respond that language always shapes belief. Today's reflection can become tomorrow's rule. Once a concept enters the church's vocabulary, it rarely disappears. One of the strongest critics of the new document is a group of theologians who published an open letter to the bishops. In it, they warn that leaven of peace and hope introduces a pastoral relativism that could erode the moral foundation of the church. They argue that by adopting terms like orientation and identity without clear theological meaning, the church is opening itself to interpretations that contradict its teaching on creation, sin, and redemption. Their letter concludes with a plea: "Do not allow the salt to lose its flavor." The world does not need another voice of compromise, it needs the clear sound of truth. Despite this, others within the synodal path continue to emphasize dialogue. They believe that truth and compassion can coexist, and that the church must find a new way of expressing old truths. "We are not changing the gospel," said one member of the Synodal Commission. "We are changing how we speak about it." Yet for many Catholics, that explanation only deepens the unease. Because once the way we speak changes, the way people understand the gospel also changes. The media has also played a major role in intensifying the debate. Secular newspapers have described the document as a progressive revolution. Some celebrate it as a step toward modernization,